couple panels. There's an artist panel with a bunch of other people, and webcomics panel with a bunch of other people there. Get involved in those. So, and those are usually fun because then you get to hear, a lot of different attitudes and whatnot about things. I get to make fun of people, but they're usually fun. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or thoughts, or whatever? Because, like I said, I think you guys got me for a while, so it said meet and greet, so we can go from that.
I got a question.
Sure.
I read you just picked up, I guess 2 years ago in Japan, like the first English manga. What is that like? Like, what was the process of that, and how cool is that to be actual English to break that?
Well, Kodansha wanted to do, of course it hits around the time that the publishing industry in Japan, hits, massive concrete blocks and smashes apart, kind of like when the book market here in the U.S. did. But no, they were genuinely interested. Kodansha Box was sort of a newer imprint of Kodansha. That was good. I have to do that every once in a while. I don't want to sound like an old man that bad. And they contacted me and they wanted to publish the MTA books. Now my first thoughts were, well, that's pretty cool. That's something I kind of always wanted to do. And then I started thinking, they're going to start with book 1. Oh God. Part of it is a little bit real. Quite honestly, realism. You look at your early stuff and you read it, and it's part of the process. And it's not that, but and people have been exposed to it online or wherever. They get used to it. But in Japan, you're thinking about, okay, you're going to get your premiere, your first work out there, and the typical Japanese fan who's never heard of what I do before picks it up and looks at some of that stuff and goes, not that the stuff I do these days is really on par with what they'd like to see, but at least it has a fighting chance. So, I actually talked to them. It's like, maybe we, is there a way maybe we should cut out like the first 3 books or something and kind of go from there. But their attitude, the idea was they really wanted to preserve the first book kind of with all of its comments and questions and cultural junk going on. Which I brought a copy with me actually. Kodansha Box is the same. They were the same guys who brought out Bakemonogatari and Nisei Monogatari, those books. So I actually, when I got some sample books, the first one of the books was the first book of Bakemono. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I wouldn't mind my imprint being with this. The translation was kind of fun. The lady who worked on it, a lot of questions, because you go back, there's so much miscellaneous stuff that I've stuck in from time to time. After a while, I was pointing out various anime series and various references from things, either Pokemon Greenwood or various other things from back in the 80s or the 90s. She's like, I'm going to have to go to the video store. I haven't watched any of these in years just to catch up with some of the references here. So it was actually kind of fun for and then some of my friends in Japan kind of went over it her first sort of run it, and they're like, no, you got it all wrong. It's like, oh crap. So they met up with her and they sort of went over a bunch of stuff. It's funny, it's like subtle stuff that I just totally would not be able to guess the way that some turn of phrase would happen in Japanese. But they were like, no, that's totally wrong. So it was just kind of funny watching it on the reverse. And speaking of that, some of my friends like Tsubasa in Japan, the way that we got to know each other is that he was very interested in translating anime. They like to, as part of their learning, learning English, they like to watch dubbed anime series. Like Evangelion, they love the English version of Evangelion. And they were just big into that sort of thing. How's that for backwards? So, and that's because they wanted to practice their English. And hey, what's a better way to do it? It's kind of like, it doesn't work with anime because that's already in Japanese. Say you get a copy of Star Wars in Japanese, watch that as part of your, learning Japanese. So it was kind of neat. It just goes to show you, there's a lot of different ways of looking at things, and it's been kind of fun getting some of the outside angles on some of it. Especially with a fan who's trying to talk English and is not very good at it. because usually a lot of times you meet, Japanese people, they don't speak Japanese at all. The most frustrating thing in the world, say if you're say an American comics fan, and let's say you get a chance to meet Warren Ellis, other than the fact that he'd kick you in the face or something, you'd still be able to talk to him. You can still talk in English, and he'd call you a sorry loser, and that'd be the end of it, or whatever. But when you're dealing with Japanese creators, often their English is either non-existent or very, very poor, and they try to communicate. Sitting at a dinner with Yoshitoshi Abe was one of my idols, and barely being able to talk to him even via a translator. It's probably one of the more frustrating experiences in my life. So I'm leaving that particular con the next day thinking, well, that was kind of depressing. I'm sitting there working on my little Mac laptop and various things. And who comes out? He's coming to the breakfast area, and it's Abe's on. And he sort of sees me, and he's like, oh, he just pulls out his Mac laptop, and I'm like, fanboy moment. So we bonded over apple crack. It's crazy stuff. So, and at Anime Expo recently, one of my first big influences was Matsumoto Izumi, who did Kimagure Orange Road. If anyone's familiar with that, big influence on me. And finally had a chance to meet the guy, and he says, "Oh, I checked out your work," and I'm like, "Oh God." But I mean, it's just a bizarre experience. You go from being a fan to later on, the guy has actually checked out your work. I mean, who knows how much he checked it out, but still, even if he was being nice, it's just an odd thing. And even years later, it still feels pretty interesting when you do that. So. But anyway, and as far as doing the Japanese book, I think it was really well done. Just the way they haven't done any further ones yet. I think they were interested in it, but it's just the market is so soft over there, and it certainly doesn't have the impact from the initial books. To me, just don't visually have the impact. And then if you've seen the cover, I don't know if you've seen the cover. I think if you've seen the original, it's got Piro and Largo, and there's like this dark background and stuff. So anyway, I sent it to them, and then they sent me the proofs of the cover, and they're all set to go. I'm like, they replaced the background with pink with yellow polka dots on white of all different sizes. I'm like, what the fuck, man? And then all this stuff, opaku with no boundaries. I'm like, okay. It's got like words all over it. And I'm like, I didn't have the heart to like say, no, I'm gonna be a pain in the ass. That sucks. You gotta do something different. So the first book is the Piro and Largo. They changed out yellow and white polka dot background. So, I don't have the book with me, but it is kind of funny. So that's my experience with publishing in Japan right now, which is it was interesting, really. The voice has been recovering, and now it's going to go to hell again. Anyway, any other questions, comments, thoughts? I'm viewing this as being more laid back than the actual panel stuff, so easier going.
So I
Sure.
have a few friends who have tried to make their own webcomics, and they did it, and I saw them, and I really liked them, but then they would always, they did it a few times, and then they deleted it because they were like, oh, it's not that great, nobody looks at it. So how did you manage to get past that? So what can I tell them to kick them in the butt?
First of all, the concept of shame, you need to put it away, okay? You should never be ashamed of your own stuff, I mean, I recently ran into this, actually, with some I talk about how much my work sucks and how much I'm not happy with what I do and all this other stuff. But with me, it's actually sort of motivational, because it's like, my stuff sucks because I know that it's possible for me to potentially do better if I tried harder. I mean, people who, they look at their stuff and it's like, nah, there's no way I'm going to be any good. No, wrong attitude. The one thing about doing comics or doing any kind of work is, first of all, I mean, this is the age of the internet. Anything you put out there is going to stay out there. I mean, you can't take it back. I mean, it just isn't possible. So why take it offline? When you put out older stuff, you always have to be you know, even though it's like, God, I mean, like I said, I mean, my first book, I mean, God, that thing is the most embarrassing. I mean, there's portions of some of the books, actually there's one book, but the artwork was actually getting better. I think it was Kimiko and Piro were dragging the drunk Largo home who had just thrown up on Kimiko. Hopefully this is not spoiler stuff. But by the way, it also helps when you can actually go back and read your stuff and you still think it's funny and you enjoy it. So, I mean, that's the other main thing. I'm doing this comic for myself. I don't care about any of you people. So, it's like, you just, you know, you try to make yourself actually happy and don't worry about the other specifics. In the end, you know, that sometimes works. So I'm going through this, I'm looking at the artwork's not bad. And then there's one frame sort of looking down on Kimiko. And it's like, her head just kind of went, it like shrunk, it was like 4 times too small. I'm looking at the panel going, oh my God, her head got shrunken. And I just, all of a sudden, her voice got real squeaky when I'm looking at the frame. So it's like some stuff like that you want to go back and change. But at the same time, you know, it's part of what you did, it's part of the history, part of, you know, the effort should always be spent on moving forward, I guess. And, you know, don't kill the stuff you did. I mean, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, it's, you know, if you're, you know how when kids in elementary and kindergarten, everybody did crayons, right? Everybody did drawings and painting and all sorts of crap. So tell me, why is it that by the time you hit middle school or high school, there are the artist kids who draw, and everybody else doesn't? You ever think about that? I mean, part of it probably comes down to the fact that it's just one more thing that people can razz your ass about. You know? So, I mean, art stuff gives you a thick skin. I mean, I know I may sound like a whiny bastard, but, you know, at the same time, I haven't taken my shit offline. You know what I mean? I'd be particularly pissed if people were taking it offline because they felt like they got a lot of criticism for it. You should never do that. I think there was a guy who was getting a lot of razzing for posting his comics to Reddit. Somebody's like, you post too many comics. So he's like, okay, fine, well, I'm going to post some comics that no one is going to like, and he'll probably be happy. So that's what he did. He made some really lame, pointless comics, and he posted those. So, you know, yeah, you can always sort of have fun with that sort of thing to a certain extent. But with comics are a learning experience. You put them up, and you sort of keep going. And you know, I think there's anybody remember Hot Soup? What's the name of his comic? My God, I can't even remember the name of the comic. We're just sad. His nickname was Hot Soup. But he sort of got to a point, and then he stopped. He said, "I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo all the comics." And then he started redoing them from the start, and it killed his comic to do that. You know? And, so it's never a good thing to do. Just, you know, accept the crap you put up and just keep going. And I know that's probably easier said than done in some cases, but so you know, yeah, that's. Yeah. I mean, come on, look at some of the comics out there. Look at some of the comics in print. How can you be ashamed of anything you do? They're making a Woody Woodpecker movie. How can anybody be ashamed of anything? Okay, I just pressed myself. Got over that. You know, that's the thing. You know, if other people have the right to put their crap up, so people have been on my ass about things for years and years on end, and it's like, what do you want me to do? Go away? I don't go around saying I'm awesome. I don't go around forcing people to read my stuff or anything. So, you're like jumping all over my ass about it. I don't care. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm not taking my stuff offline. So, you know, it's life on the internet, you know. I don't know, how many people here have had internet ever since like elementary school or middle school? Oh, you poor people, man. I mean, what I can't imagine is the concept of forever memory of the internet and going through puberty. Holy shit. You know, the idea of some of my employers being able to go back and look at stuff from back then. I feel sorry for people, man. See, 'cause I was at college. I was at college by the time the internet sort of really started to take off. So, I'm like, phew. But of course now it's like my son, he's 4. I'm like, oh God, what am I gonna do? Yeah, but we'll see. So, okay, here's